I was standing in my wedding dress, barefoot on cold marble, when his mother slid a prenup across the table and said, "Sign it, or you don't walk down that aisle." I would have signed it. I really would have. Until I saw the bank's name printed at the top. The same bank that had been managing my private trust fund since I was a child. And suddenly, nothing about this marriage felt real anymore. Stick with me. My name is Serafina Vale, and 3 hours before my wedding, my entire world shifted in a way I never expected. I wasn't shaking because of nerves. I wasn't scared of marriage. I was scared because something felt very, very wrong. I grew up with money, yes, but not the kind people post about online. My life was quiet, private, protected. My grandfather made sure of that before he passed away. He built a trust fund for me, carefully managed, locked behind layers of security. Only 3 people knew about it. Me, my grandfather, and our family attorney. That was it. Or at least, that's what I believed my whole life. Then I met Callum Varelli. He was charming, confident, and came from one of those powerful families everyone hears about but never really understands. His family owned banks, investments, things that moved money quietly behind the scenes. At first, none of that mattered to me. He made me laugh. He listened. He felt safe. But now, standing in that cold room, holding that prenup, I started seeing everything differently. His mother, Lenora Varelli, stood across from me like she owned the air I was breathing. Calm. Controlled. Watching me like I was a decision, not a person. "It's standard," she said smoothly. "Protection for both sides." But my eyes stayed locked on that logo at the top of the document. That bank. My bank. My heart began to pound harder. There was a clause buried in the pages. I almost missed it. But when I read it again, slowly my stomach dropped. It mentioned pre-existing trust assets. Not general wealth. Not assumptions. Specific. Accurate. Impossible. I looked up at her, then at Callum. He wouldn't meet my eyes. And in that moment, something inside me snapped into clarity. This wasn't just a marriage. This wasn't love. This was something planned. Something calculated. And I suddenly understood the truth I should have seen sooner. I wasn't marrying into wealth. I was being targeted by it. I didn't sign the paper. Instead, I placed the pen down slowly and looked up at Lenora with a calm face, even though my heart was racing inside. "Can I ask something first?" I said gently. Her lips curved into a small, controlled smile. "Of course." I tapped the document lightly. "This part about pre-existing trust assets. It's very specific." For a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. But it disappeared just as fast. "It's standard protection," she replied smoothly. "Families like ours don't leave things unclear. Families like ours." The words didn't sit right with me. I forced a small nod, pretending to accept her answer. But inside, my thoughts were spinning. That wasn't just general legal wording. It was too accurate, too precise. Like someone knew exactly what they were writing about. I picked up the pen again, then paused. "I think I need a moment," I said. Lenora's smile tightened, but she stepped back. "Don't take too long. Guests are waiting." "Guests?" "Right. My wedding." I walked out of the room, holding the edges of my dress, trying not to trip as my mind raced faster than my steps. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I found Callum near the hallway, adjusting his cufflinks like nothing was wrong. "Can we talk?" I asked. He looked at me, surprised. "Now?" "Yes. Now." We stepped into a quiet corner. The noise of preparations faded behind us, leaving only silence between us. I held up the prenup. "Why does this mention my trust?" His face changed. Not confusion. Not surprise. Defensiveness. "It's just legal language," he said quickly. "You're overthinking it." "No, I'm not," I replied, my voice steady. "It's too specific. How does your family even know about it?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Serafina, this is what my family does. We cover every possibility. It's normal." "Normal? Then look at me and say that," I said quietly. He didn't. His eyes shifted away, focusing on the wall, the floor, anywhere but me. That hurt more than anything. "This is just thoroughness," he added, but his voice felt rehearsed, like he had said it before. Like he had practiced it. I stepped back slowly, my chest tightening. For the first time since I met him, I didn't feel safe standing next to him. I felt like I was standing across from him. Like I didn't really know him at all. And in that moment, just hours before I was supposed to marry him, I realized something terrifying. I felt like a stranger at my own wedding. I didn't go back to the bridal room. Instead, I walked down a quiet hallway, away from the noise, the music, and the people who thought this day was perfect. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. There was only one person I trusted enough to call. Alistair Crown. He had been my grandfather's attorney for years. Careful, private, and loyal. If something was wrong, he would know. He answered on the second ring. Serafina? Is everything all right? I swallowed hard. No. I need you to listen carefully. I quickly explained the prenup, the clause, and the bank name printed at the top. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then his voice changed. What did you say? He asked, sharper now. I repeated it, slower this time. Another pause. He exhaled deeply. That's not possible. My chest tightened. What do you mean? No one outside our circle should know about your trust, he said firmly. Not the details. Not the structure. And certainly not enough to reference it in a legal document. I leaned against the wall for support. So it's not normal? Absolutely not, he replied. This is a serious breach, Serafina. The word breach made my stomach drop. Can you find out how this happened? I asked quietly. I will start immediately, he said. Do not sign anything. Do you understand me? I won't, I whispered. We ended the call, but his words stayed heavy in my mind. A serious breach. I closed my eyes, trying to steady myself. But instead of calming down, my thoughts began to race. Moments. Conversations. Memories. Callum asking small questions about my finances, always in a casual way. Do you ever think about investments? Your grandfather must have set you up well, right? You don't really have to worry about money, do you? At the time, I thought it was normal curiosity. We were getting married. Couples talk about their future. But now it felt different. Too many questions. Too much interest. Too perfectly timed. Even the way his family treated me started to make sense. The polite smiles. The careful attention. The quiet observation. It didn't feel warm anymore. It felt calculated. Like I had been studied. Like I had been chosen. My heart sank as the truth slowly formed in my mind. What I thought was love. The late-night talks. The promises. The way he looked at me. Now it all felt like part of something else. Something planned. Something strategic. And for the first time, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I wasn't sure if Callum ever truly loved me. Or if he was just getting closer to something that belonged to me. I took a deep breath before walking back. The hallway felt longer than before, like every step was pulling me closer to something I could no longer ignore. My heart was still racing, but now it wasn't confusion. It was clarity. Callum was standing near the window when I returned. He turned when he saw me, his expression soft at first. There you are, he said. Everything okay? I forced a small smile. Yeah, I just needed air. He nodded, stepping closer. Good. We're almost ready. Mom's waiting for your answer. Of course she was. I looked down at the prenup still in my hands, then back at him. This was it. I needed to know the truth, not from documents, but from him. I've been thinking, I said carefully. Maybe I shouldn't sign anything today. The change in his face was instant. Not confusion. Not concern. Something colder. What do you mean? He asked quickly. I mean, it's a big decision, I replied, keeping my voice calm. Maybe we can go through it later. After the wedding. His jaw tightened. That's not how this works. I blinked. Why not? Because it needs to be done now, he said, his tone sharper. Before anything happens. Anything happens. The words felt wrong. I tilted my head slightly. Callum, it's just paperwork. If we trust each other, it shouldn't matter when we sign it. For a second, he didn't answer. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. You don't understand, he said. My family won't allow this to move forward without it. My chest tightened. My family. Not we. Not us. I stayed quiet, letting him continue. If you refuse to sign, he added, they'll pull everything. I frowned. Everything. Yes, he said, almost impatient now. The wedding, the arrangements, all of it. They won't support this marriage. Support. That word echoed in my mind. I looked at him carefully. And you? He hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. They're doing this for a reason, he said finally. You should trust that. I felt something inside me sink. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just realization. This wasn't about us building a future together. This was about his family controlling every part of it. Even me. I took a small step back, my grip tightening on the paper in my hand. For so long, I thought I was marrying Callum. A man who loved me, who chose me. But standing there, looking at him now, I saw the truth clearly. I was never just marrying him. I was stepping into something much bigger. Something colder. Something controlling. And for the first time, it hit me fully. I wasn't walking into a marriage. I was walking into a system. And in that system, I was never meant to have control. I didn't go back to the ceremony. I couldn't. My hands were still holding the prenup, but now it felt heavier, like it carried more than just paper and ink. I stepped into a quiet corner again, trying to think, trying to breathe. Then my phone rang. Alistair. My heart dropped as I answered. Tell me you found something. His voice came through, serious and controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath. I did, and you need to listen carefully. I leaned against the wall, bracing myself. There was unauthorized access to your trust records, he said. It didn't come from outside hackers. It came from inside a banking system. My throat went dry. Which bank? There was a pause. Then he said it. The Varelli Bank. Everything inside me went still. That's not possible, I whispered, even though I knew it was. I traced the access logs, Alistair continued. Someone used internal credentials to view restricted files. These are records that are sealed, Serafina. They are not supposed to be seen, not even by most financial institutions. My grip on the phone tightened. So they knew. Yes, he said. And not just recently. This has been happening over time. Quietly. A cold feeling spread through my chest. Alistair, the prenup, I said slowly. It mentions my trust in detail. I'm not surprised, he replied. And there's more. I closed my eyes. Say it. There are signs, he said carefully, that someone has been positioning for future control. Legal pathways. Marriage alignment. Asset exposure through spousal agreements. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I understood. They weren't just curious about your wealth, he added. They were planning around it. Planning. The word hit harder than anything else. Every moment with Callum flashed through my mind again. The questions, the timing, the way everything moved so smoothly toward this wedding. It wasn't random. It wasn't love growing naturally. It was steps. Calculated steps. This wasn't an accident, was it? I asked quietly. No, Alistair said firmly. This was premeditated. The word echoed in my head. Premeditated. That meant time. Intention. Planning from the very beginning. My chest rose and fell slowly as the truth settled in, piece by piece. I wasn't just caught in a bad situation. I was placed in it. Chosen. Studied. Led here. The dress. The wedding. The prenup. None of it felt real anymore. Because it wasn't built on love. It was built on access. And standing there, alone with the truth finally clear, I realized something that made my stomach turn. I was never the bride in their story. I was the target. I stood there for a long time after the call ended. The truth was heavy, but it also brought something else with it. Clarity. They didn't just cross a line. They built a plan around me without my consent. And now they expected me to quietly step into it like nothing happened. I slowly looked down at the prenup in my hands. Then I made my decision. I would not run. Not yet. I took a deep breath and walked back toward the wedding area. My steps were slower now, but my mind was steady. For the first time all day, I wasn't confused. I knew exactly what I had to do. When I returned, Lenora was still seated like nothing had changed. Callum stood nearby, watching me closely as if trying to read my face. I've thought about it, I said calmly. Lenora raised her eyebrows. And I lifted the prenup slightly. I'm willing to sign. Callum visibly relaxed. But I wasn't finished. However, I added softly, there are a few minor revisions I want added first. Lenora's smile returned. What kind of revisions? Nothing major, I said quickly. Just clarity on a few clauses. Standard language adjustments. My attorney suggested it. That last part made Callum pause, but I didn't give him time to react. If everything is fair, I continued, then small changes shouldn't be a problem. Lenora studied me for a moment. We can review it. Good. That was exactly what I wanted. Time. Space. A delay. I gave a small nod. Great. I'll send the updates through my attorney today. Callum stepped closer after Lenora turned away. His voice dropped. You're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I looked at him calmly. I'm just protecting myself. Isn't that what your family wanted? He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. Later, I stepped away again and called Alistair. I need everything, I said quietly. Every record, every access point, every detail tied to their bank. There was no hesitation in his voice. Already started. And I want proof, I added. Not just suspicion. I want something undeniable. I understand, he said. But Serafina, are you sure you want to go down this path today? I looked back toward the wedding hall. The lights. The flowers. The people waiting for a moment that was supposed to be happy. But none of it belonged to me anymore. They made their choice, I said softly. Now I'm making mine. I ended the call and stood still for a moment. If the Varellis thought I was just a quiet bride they could control, they were about to learn how wrong they were. Because now I wasn't just protecting myself. I was preparing. And when the truth finally came out, I wouldn't be the one losing everything. The wedding hall looked perfect from the outside. White flowers lined the aisle. Soft music played in the background. Guests smiled and whispered, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Everything looked like a dream. But I knew the truth now. And I was done pretending. I stood at the end of the aisle in my wedding dress, my hands steady even though my heart was beating fast. Callum stood at the front, looking at me like everything was normal. Like nothing had changed. Like he didn't know what was coming. Lenora sat in the front row, calm as ever, watching everything like she was in control of the world. The officiant began speaking. Words about love, trust, and forever filled the room. But I wasn't listening anymore. My eyes stayed on Lenora. Then I took a step forward. And another. The officiant paused. We can begin the vows. No, I said clearly. My voice cut through the room. Everything stopped. The music faded. The whispers disappeared. All eyes turned to me. Callum looked confused. Serafina, what are you doing? I didn't look at him. I looked at Lenora. I have a question, I said calmly. A murmur moved through the guests. Lenora tilted her head slightly. This isn't the time. I ignored her. Why did your bank illegally access my private trust records? The silence that followed was instant and heavy. It felt like the entire room forgot how to breathe. Someone in the back gasped. A chair shifted loudly. But no one spoke. Callum stepped forward quickly. Serafina, stop. This is not. I raised my hand slightly without even looking at him. Don't, I said quietly. He froze. For the first time, he didn't interrupt me. I turned back to Lenora. My voice stayed calm but firm. You knew about a trust that only 3 people in the world were supposed to know about, I said. So tell me how your bank got access to it. Lenora's face didn't change much, but I saw it, just for a second. A small crack in her control. I don't know what you're talking about, she said smoothly. But the room was already different now. People were watching her differently. Whispering had started again. Callum reached for my arm. Serafina, please. I stepped away from him. Not angry. Not shaking. Just finished pretending. Because in that moment, I wasn't a bride anymore. I wasn't someone waiting for vows or promises. I was the person exposing the truth in the middle of everything they thought they controlled. And as the silence grew heavier, I realized something clearly. There was no going back now. The silence in the hall didn't last long. After I spoke, people started shifting in their seats, whispering to each other, trying to understand what was happening. The wedding that once felt perfect was now something else entirely. I took a small step forward. Then I raised my hand holding the folder. I have proof, I said clearly. That got everyone's attention again. Callum frowned. Serafina, what is this? I didn't answer him. Instead, I opened the folder in my hands. Inside were printed emails, access logs, and official statements from my attorney. Clean. Organized. Clear. I turned slightly so people in the front rows could see. This is documentation showing unauthorized access to my private trust records, I said. Access that came directly through banking systems connected to your family. A wave of whispers spread instantly. People leaned toward each other, confused, shocked, unsure what to believe. Lenora stood up slowly. This is ridiculous, she said firmly. You're trying to ruin a wedding with false accusations. Her voice was strong, controlled, practiced. But I noticed something. Her hand was tighter on the edge of her chair. I didn't stop. I also have legal statements confirming that my trust was supposed to be completely private, I continued. And access logs that show repeated internal views over time. I looked directly at her now. This wasn't a mistake, I said. It wasn't an accident. The room grew even quieter. Some guests were already standing up, quietly leaving. Others stayed frozen, watching like they were afraid to miss what came next. Lenora tried to speak again, but her voice was slightly sharper now. You don't understand how financial systems work. I understand enough, I interrupted calmly. That shut her down. For the first time, her confidence didn't feel solid anymore. It felt like it was breaking. I turned the folder slightly again, letting more people see the documents. This isn't just about me. It's about how far this went and who benefited from it. Callum finally stepped closer. His voice was low. Serafina, what are you doing? I looked at him then. Really looked at him. And what I saw wasn't anger. It wasn't denial. It was shock. Not because I was lying, but because he clearly never expected me to stand here and fight back. Never expected me to bring proof. Never expected me to expose everything in front of everyone. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. For the first time since I met him, Callum Varelli looked completely unprepared. And in that moment, I understood something very clearly. This wasn't just a wedding falling apart. This was a system starting to collapse in real time. It didn't take long after that moment for everything to fall apart. Within days, the situation moved beyond the wedding hall. What I revealed couldn't be ignored anymore. Authorities stepped in. Regulators opened investigations. The Varelli Bank, once powerful and untouchable, was suddenly under serious review for financial misconduct and privacy violations. The news spread quickly. Too quickly. Articles appeared online. Private meetings turned into official hearings. People who once praised the Varelli family started stepping back, distancing themselves like they had never been close at all. And through all of it, I stayed quiet. Not because I was scared, but because I was done explaining myself. Then Callum came to see me. It was a few days later. I was alone when he showed up, standing at the edge of the room like he didn't know if he was welcome anymore. He looked different. Tired. Less sure of himself. Serafina, he said softly. Please can we talk? I didn't stop what I was doing. Say what you need to say. He swallowed hard. I didn't know everything. I swear. My mother handled most of it. I wasn't part of. I looked at him then. Really looked. And I saw it clearly. Not guilt. Not full truth. Just damage control. You always knew enough, I said quietly. His face tightened. That's not fair. It is, I replied. Because you were there. You saw things. You heard things. And you chose not to question them. He stepped closer. I never wanted to hurt you. I gave a small, calm nod. But you didn't stop it either. Silence fell between us. Heavy. Final. He opened his mouth again, but nothing came out this time. There was nothing left to fix. No version of this where things went back to what they were supposed to be. I walked past him. Not fast. Not emotional. Just finished. Outside, the world felt different. Lighter somehow, even with everything that had happened. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel trapped in someone else's plan. I felt free. The wedding dress was still with me, carefully packed away. But it didn't feel like a reminder of what I lost. It felt like proof of something else. That I had seen the truth when it mattered. That I had spoken when I could have stayed silent. And that I didn't break under pressure. I stood for myself. And I walked away with everything that actually mattered still intact. Not a marriage. Not a promise. But my control. And that was the real victory. Months passed after everything happened, but my life never went back to what it was before. The Varelli family name, once spoken with respect, became something people whispered about instead. News reports, court cases, and investigations kept piling up. Their bank faced serious lawsuits, and every week there was another update showing how deep the problems went. What looked powerful from the outside was slowly falling apart from within. I didn't follow every headline. I didn't need to. I already knew the truth. And while their world was collapsing, I was rebuilding mine. Quietly, carefully, I moved out of the place that held too many memories. I changed routines. I took long walks just to clear my head. For the first time in a long time, no one was watching my decisions or trying to shape them. Most importantly, I went back to my trust, not as something distant or hidden, but as something that belonged fully to me again. With Alistair's help, everything was secured properly. Clean. Protected. No gaps. No hidden access. Just the way it was always supposed to be. But even after everything was fixed on paper, my thoughts still returned to that day. Standing in the wedding dress. Holding that prenup. Feeling the moment my life split into before and after. There were nights I sat alone and replayed it all in my mind. Not with sadness anymore, but with understanding. I had been so close to signing it away. Not just money. Not just property, but my right to decide my own future. That realization stayed with me longer than anything else. Because it wasn't just about betrayal. It was about how easily control can hide inside something that looks safe. Something that looks like love. Something that looks like family. One evening, I stood by the window of my new place, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. Everything felt quiet, stable, and for the first time, I wasn't looking back with anger. I was looking back with clarity. I understood now that the prenup was never just a document. It was a test, a boundary, a moment where everything hidden became visible. And in the end, it didn't measure my worth at all. It revealed something else completely. It showed who was trying to take advantage of it. And that truth stayed with me in a simple, powerful way. The prenup didn't expose my value. It exposed theirs. That if this story made you think, remember this. Always read legal documents carefully and never ignore unusual details in contracts or trust-related papers. Knowledge and awareness protect your rights and future. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe for more real-life inspired lessons about trust, betrayal, and strength.